When the lights go out and my generator becomes the neighborhood's unexpected savior, I realize that sometimes rebellion against the rules reveals the true power of community and delicious ice cream. It was a gloriously bright Saturday morning, and I couldn't have felt more festive if I tried. My brand new generator gleamed in the sunlight like a shiny promise, a beacon of independence against the tyranny of non-existent power outages. With each twist of the wrench, I imagined my neighbors nodding in appreciation, whispering sweet praises of gratitude for my foresight. Little did I know that my engineering project would soon attract the attention of our own neighborhood watchdog, Karen Melrose, self-proclaimed HOA enforcer and kingpin of suburban decorum. Dressed in her impeccably pressed blouse and those tailored slacks that practically screamed, "I eat chaos for breakfast," she appeared as if conjured out of thin air, clutching her oversized rulebook like it was the holy grail of community standards. "Alex, you can't possibly think that's allowed." Karen's voice was a high, sharp note of indignation, and I swear it could shatter glass. "That generator is violating the sacred noise codes of our pristine neighborhood." I bit my tongue to keep from rolling my eyes so hard that I might actually see the back of my own skull. Here we were, standing in a suburb that had seen more complaints than cheese in a cheesy rom-com, and she had the audacity to accuse my generator, my glorious life-saving machine, of being a villain. "And don't you care about the encouraging ambiance of serenity we have cultivated here?" she continued, her over-the-top performance nearly convincing enough to make me laugh. I couldn't resist a smirk. Serenity? In a place where the loudest sound typically hailed from the occasional yapping chihuahua or Greg's questionable attempts at playing his guitar during happy hour. Come on, Karen. My generator was nothing more than a harmless hum compared to the racket of her incessant observations. "Oh, Karen, my heartfelt apologies for ruining your chirpy atmosphere with a sound that's quieter than your late-night rants against the mailbox's color options," I quipped, unable to help myself. At this point, I had resigned myself to the prospect of becoming a local villain in her HOA tales, but it felt oh so good to stand my ground. As she sputtered about impending fines, I wondered how on earth she was so invested in my backyard when she was right down the street, barricaded behind her perfectly manicured lawn, clutching a cup of overpriced, ethically sourced coffee. I took a moment to enjoy her exasperation, picturing Karen's keen interest in my generator, a potential story to share at her book club or possibly even next year's HOA symposium where they'd discuss ways to bring civilization to its knees. Given the chance, I could probably even squeeze in some dramatic retelling about the dangers of noise pollution. Ah yes, the tragedy of an unquiet generator amidst the idyllic ambiance of suburban bliss. And just as I was about to deliver the grand finale of my sarcastic monologue, the universe chose to intervene, quite dramatically, might I add. The cloud-drenched sky cracked open with the unceremonious boom of thunder, sending dark clouds spiraling into a tempest that could only be described as a scene from a disaster movie. As the first drops of rain began to fall, I could almost hear Karen's anguished wails echoing through the thunderclaps, each one puncturing through the air like a nail to her HOA coffin. So much for serene silence. Nature had a jolly sense of humor, didn't it? And then, as if the wrath of Mother Nature had a specific agenda, the neighborhood plunged into darkness. The power was gone. A heaviness hung in the air, thick enough to choke on. I couldn't help but chuckle at the irony. My generator, once deemed a catalyst of chaos, now stood like a heroic knight prepared to rescue the damsels of the neighborhood from the clutches of darkness. I could practically hear the whine of Karen's complaints being drowned out by the pitter-patter of rain, and it brought a twisted grin to my face. The irony was delectable. I glanced over at Greg through the window. There he was, practically dancing with delight on his vintage bicycle outside, twirling in the rain like he had just won the lottery. "Looks like your HOA dreams will have to wait, Karen," he shouted with gusto, his voice a warm beacon amidst the chaos. And oh, how sweet that victory tasted. I almost believed at that moment that the universe had a hidden agenda, siding with me just for the satisfaction of watching Karen squirm. As I prepped my generator, ready to bask in the glow of light while she fumbled around in the dark, it seemed like the very essence of karma was at play. All I needed was popcorn and a comfortable seat to watch the show unfold. Fate had dealt the cards in the most absurd manner, and yet, here I was, an underground champion of suburban rebellion armed with a generator, while Karen huddled in her dark home, freezing and regretting every time she glanced at that dusty rulebook. This showdown wasn't just a battle for independence. It was a hilarious, beautiful testament to the absurdity of suburban life. And as I flipped the switch on my generator, immersing myself in the cozy, warm glow of my garage, I chuckled to myself, realizing that perhaps the real beauty of community lay in the comedy of our daily lives. With my generator humming merrily away, casting a warm pool of light against the garage walls, I officially felt like the ruler of my suburban domain. I was completely and utterly reveling in this ostentatious display of electrical power when the thought struck me. While I was basking in glory, Karen Melrose was likely trapped in her fortress of shadows, shivering away like one of those cartoon characters who'd just been dropped into a giant ice cube. The image was too delightful to resist. Like a concerned neighbor, or perhaps more accurately, a gleeful imp, I headed out into the rain-washed evening, my spirit buoyed with the absurd sweetness of the moment and a vision brewing in my head. "Hello, Karen," I called out, my voice dripping with exaggerated cheeriness as I strolled past her perfectly sculpted hedge. I could almost hear her choking on whatever overpriced herbal tea she must have been sipping in the dark. "Would you like to come over for an ice cream and generator party? There's plenty of light and a delightful hum to keep you company." I watched her expression wobble between disbelief and the restrained fury of a coiled spring ready to unleash hell. Her cheeks flushed pinker than the brand of organic strawberries I had just bought, and I fought the urge not to laugh. And then there was Greg, who appeared out of the shadows, grinning like he'd just discovered a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. "This is great," he shouted, throwing an arm around my shoulders as if we were comrades in arms ready to tackle the tyrant herself. "Can you imagine the HOA meeting after this?" His laughter dribbled off into the heavy rain, echoing back at us like a shared battle cry. "Karen will be crying all the way home. Picture it, her reading up on generators while trying to figure out how to survive an impending apocalypse of her own making. Oh, the sheer bliss of it all. The universe had orchestrated the most delicious irony. My generator, once deemed a call to chaos, now stood as a beacon while Karen huddled in darkness. She once tried to belittle my need for independence, but here I was, wielding the very thing she wanted to banish like an unwelcome flea. The thought of her, the cruel queen of the HOA, forced to admit defeat in light of my battery-powered glory, was enough to send butterflies into a tizzy in my stomach. Little did she know, the very thing she sought to eradicate was now the source of our neighborhood soiree. "Just think," I exclaimed, waving my arms theatrically. "With the blackouts spreading like wildfire across town, I can be the light in our little suburban corner. Who knew a generator would be the crux of community bonding? Ice cream and power in the same sentence. It's like a divine combination, if I do say so myself." I was on a roll, my energy interacting with the cooling winds around us. A few curious neighbors peeked out, eyes wide with intrigue, as Greg enthusiastically began to spread the word like a new religion focusing on improvised outdoor gatherings. As the clouds let loose a torrent that was beginning to blur the suburban lines between chaos and fun, I saw a flicker of movement in the distance. Karen, decked in an oversized blanket that somehow seemed both tragic and ridiculous in its drabness, emerged from her fortress. She was a figure straight out of a black-and-white horror film, fumbling her way toward illuminated civilization with the grace of a newborn foal. And oh, the satisfaction. Literal goosebumps shot up my arms as I imagined her internal monologue. Did she feel the icy tendrils of regret creeping in as she watched other houses twinkle, not with the well-manicured glow of her own, but with the boisterous energy of spontaneous celebration? "Don't you dare stray too far into the noise!" she cried out, a handle of an umbrella shaking like a sword at the ready. It was the kind of desperate warning you'd expect from a battle-hardened warrior facing certain defeat. I couldn't help but cackle, my laughter bursting forth like the glorious clinking of ice cream scoops in a cone. "But Karen," I responded, turning dramatically towards her, "let democracy rejoice. Join us in the sweet, creamy festivities that you've deprived us of with those terrible rules you hold so dear. Come taste liberation." In that moment, my heart raced with the thrill of mischief and rebellion. A sense of powerful camaraderie began to envelop the space around us, while the smiles and waves from the neighbors served as a confirming soundtrack. Our neighborhood, united amidst the chaos of nature and hum of machinery, was thriving in an ocean of pure, unfiltered absurdity. Honestly, who knew that my obnoxious generator, once a cataclysm of complaints, might very well turn into the life of the block's party? How utterly, delightfully inconceivable. As our small gathering blossomed beneath my garage's golden glow, I reveled in the delicious absurdity of it all. If we could fend off the chill of a blackout with laughter, ice cream, and the vibrating pulse of communal independence, then surely we could endure anything, even an HOA meeting or Karen's relentless opinions. I sensed the dawn of a new era, one where neighborhood rules could be bent, if not shattered, by the sheer power of community spirit fueled by delightfully invasive generators. And perhaps, just perhaps, this joyful rebellion was only the beginning of something amazing, bringing us all together, one ice cream scoop at a time. As I watched Karen struggle through the rain-soaked yard with her blanket clutched around her like a miserable ball of yarn, I could hardly contain myself. Was this woman truly oblivious to the hilarity of her position? Poor Karen, the self-appointed protector of our illustrious HOA, was now a shivering specter of irony. I mean, where was her beloved decorum now, with that absurd blanket swaying precariously around her? It was the kind of visual that looked like a stock photo for when your HOA enforces ridiculous rules and you forget how to function. And of course, Greg was none too gracious, bursting into laughter beside me. I hope she brought her Ugg boots to ward off the chill of defeat. Greg chuckled, mirroring my delight in the unfolding tableau. His eyes sparkled with mischief as he nudged me. You know, this is poetic justice, Alex. The first winter blackout of the decade, and who's the one floundering like a fish out of water? It's honestly heartwarming to witness her downfall in a catastrophic but brilliant spectacle. I couldn't help but nod vigorously in agreement as a wave of camaraderie washed over me, fueling my defiance and spirit. The absurdity was almost intoxicating, equal parts schadenfreude and exhilaration. To bridge the growing distance between our two worlds, I shimmied my way over to Karen, who was still huddled in her woolen fort. "Karen, darling, it's mega cozy over here," I said, adopting my best faux welcome tone and waving my arms wide to indicate the shindig. "We've got ice cream, delightful company, and I even set up an elaborate light show courtesy of my trusty generator. Wouldn't you want to swap your gloomy encampment for a taste of our festive adventure?" My heart danced with glee as I conjured the image of her succumbing to the siren song of sugary delight. For a fleeting second, her face lit up with a flicker of curiosity before reality flashed back across her features, turning her joy into a mask of defiance. "I suppose," she muttered through chattering teeth, "a little chaos in the name of community isn't completely unacceptable, within reason, of course." Oh, praise the suburban gods! It seemed my arch-nemesis was loosening up, one shivering toe at a time. I would like to think my playful bantering transformed her into a more relatable creature, rather than the impenetrable fortress she typically displayed. As Karen opted to join the festivities, I couldn't help but grin like a Cheshire cat. I faced the crew gathered around the generator with a mischievous flourish, proclaiming, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the glorious Karen Melrose, the woman who dared to question the power of independence and swore our area would be generator-free." The crowd erupted in laughter, and for once, I could see a glimmer of reluctant amusement in Karen's eyes despite the absurdity of her circumstances. The dark clouds above me rumbled faintly as if the universe itself was joining in this electrifying moment of hilarity. Once Karen got close enough, my neighbors were on their toes, eager to welcome her into our little snowy sanctuary. "Ice cream? We have the finest flavors, all organic and non-GMO. I even stocked up on avocado chocolate for you," I chirped, half mocking but entirely sincere. To my astonishment, Karen might have had a heartbeat and a sense of humor concealed somewhere under that impeccable bob and austere demeanor. "Just a smidge of mint chip will do, thank you," she replied, attempting her best version of polite indifference, which honestly was a bit impressive under the circumstances. Some people, they truly know how to embrace hypocrisy better than anyone else in suburbia. As Karen's dreadfully overdressed hand reached towards the cold tub of brimming flavors, I could almost hear her faint moan of deprivation as she surrendered to the chaos seeping through the air. Only here, amidst the jubilant laughter of my neighbors and the cozy radiance of my generator, did she taste fleeting freedom. With each scoop, I savored the delicious irony. The very power she'd tried to banish was now holding her captive in a world of sweetness and joy. My heart soared even higher, knowing our community was blossoming in a way that Karen could never have anticipated. And so, as we gathered under the soft glow of golden light, the delightful whirlpool of chaos enveloped us, bridging gaps that once felt insurmountable. I could see old grievances melting like ice cream on a summer's day as we clinked spoons together, celebrating our bittersweet and mildly absurd unity. Who would have imagined that Karen Melrose, our HOA overlord, could possibly be charmed into embracing the light? Perhaps the universe had planted a lesson in absurdity just for us that night, one where joy could only be achieved by relinquishing the reins of entitlement, if only just for a night. As I took a toothsome scoop of delightfully sweet mint chip, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Armed now with the whimsical power of ice cream and generators, the neighborhood was set to face whatever nonsense the HOA had planned next, but definitely not without a scoop of delicious rebellion to accompany us. What could possibly happen next? My heart raced with uncontainable elation. Because if handling Karen like this was the flavor of our future, let's just say I was all in. As Karen Melrose made her way into our makeshift ice cream parlor, her all-weather parka flapping like a disgruntled bird caught in a windstorm, the laughter and chaos of my neighbors bloomed around us like an overripe fruit basket. "Welcome to the neighborhood ordeal, Karen," I said, unable to fully contain my glee. "I trust you've left your steely enforcement hat behind." She huffed in return, furrowing her perfectly groomed brows as she wrestled with the concept of stepping outside her rigid boundaries. The irony was simply too delicious. The queen of conformity was now a guest at the carnival of chaos she once tried so hard to squash. "Just so you know," I continued with a glint of mischief in my eye, "part of your participation means embracing the unsanctioned fun we have here. We've got giant inflatable flamingos and neon party lights." Greg whistled loudly, pretending to direct a spotlight on her, as if we'd rolled out the red carpet for a royal guest. Karen rolled her eyes but couldn't resist a tiny, reluctant smile. There she was, our dear HOA matriarch, attempting to stifle any joy that dared break the surface, now dabbling her pinky into the chaotic pool of unadulterated fun. "Flamingos?" she said, desperate to poke holes in the merriment. But even her stony facade seemed to waver under the glow of anticipation. As if in perfect accompaniment to my assessment of the absurdity unfolding, the phone notification suddenly started buzzing in a delightful symphonic frenzy. My neighbors, emboldened by this newfound camaraderie, began live-streaming the event to social media, announcing the icy takeover, the Karen Chronicles. Greg threw a wink my way, making it clear that the digital age of shenanigans had arrived. "Of course, we have a tech-savvy HOA member to thank for this antic," I quipped, leaning closer to Karen as our neighbor Tanya dramatically pretended to interview her. "How does it feel to finally experience the joyous chaos you've fought so hard to eradicate?" Diverting her attention from the goofiness around her, Karen stepped forth into the fold. Mini rebellion absorbs all, and she was looking positively delectable in her confusion. "I suppose in moderation entertainment can be mildly acceptable," she stammered, clearly straddling the line between her instinctual need for order and this insane burst of laughter exploding around her. I stifled a guffaw as she looked around. The once frozen air of neighborly discontent melted as quickly as my rapidly vanishing ice cream. I took another scoop, reveling in the spectacle of a Karen meets ice cream situation, with absurdity curdling the very core of our community. Feeling emboldened by this victory, I leaned in closer and whispered conspiratorially, "You know, Karen, the generator doesn't just provide power, it brings people together. Perhaps more community events that bypass the no-fun regulations would let us all enjoy these lovely evenings." A hint of a smile crept onto her lips, which made my heart do a joyous backflip. There was a glimmer of possibility in the icy depths of her soul. Our quirky little community was captivating even the biggest HOA enforcer in our midst. Could she possibly join us in our rebellion against stereotypes? As if the universe decided to take irony to new heights, just then, a tentacle of wind spun through the yard, playfully tousling Karen's bob like a Victorian-era drama twist. The mix of her incredulous expression and the chaotic backdrop made me burst into uncontrollable laughter. "Honestly, if this isn't the universe's way of telling you to lighten up, I don't know what is," I shouted over the cacophony of giggles, the neighbors' brightened cheers becoming the background to our latest folly. Their agreement echoed through the air, embracing the absurdity of hosting a rooftop ice cream party with the very woman who would normally shun any hint of spontaneity. It was then that I witnessed the most remarkable transformation. Amid the lighthearted teasing and absurdity, Karen loosened her grip on her pretentious pedestal. She reached out, tentatively grabbing a scoop of mint chip ice cream, her carefully constructed defenses melting before my eyes. "Fine, I shall embrace this chaotic indulgence. Just know that I maintain the right to roll my eyes at all unnecessary chaos." Laughter erupted, the kind that bonded us all, sealing a tiny crack in the fortress of criticism and rules around her. Empowered by a spoonful of rebellion, Karen stepped closer into our chaotic circle, and for a brief moment, we were inexplicably unified against the mundanity of contingency and rule. The blackout raged on outside, battling the elements to prove that life's unpredictability was a part of our neighborhood's identity now. Karen, with a plastic spoon extended towards a scoop of rebellious mint chip beauty, had finally embraced a realm she once viewed as chaos incarnate. I couldn't predict the outcome of this newfound alliance, but as we all gathered to enjoy a once-in-a-lifetime ice cream fest, armed with generators and laughter, I felt a wave of empowerment surge through me. Who knows? Maybe we had just overturned a new leaf in our community. After all, the power of togetherness was greater than any HOA decree, or at least, that's what I hoped as I dipped into my own ice cream, ready to face whatever came next. As the swirling wind bore witness to our unlikely gathering, the excitement reached a crescendo. "Welcome to your very own ice cream revolution, Karen," I boomed dramatically, thinking of myself as the ringleader of this unconventional circus. "Tonight, we will not just celebrate ice cream, but rather the audacity of embracing chaos." A collective cheer erupted from my neighbors, sending our HOA ruler into an uncertain whirlwind of emotions. Was she ready to sip the sweet nectar of freedom, or would she succumb to the familiar allure of order? "Remember that time you tried to find me for my wildflower garden?" I smirked, pointing an accusatory finger playfully at her. "I bet you thought I was running a botanic McDonald's with all those colors." The chatter momentarily halted while I savored the look on her face, half indignation, half exasperated amusement. The moment hung in the air as if a comedic spotlight had turned on, revealing the unlikeliest of enemies in our icy embrace. Oh, what a world we live in where a woman's attempt to paint her yard pink can be construed as neighborhood disruption. I snickered, my voice thick with playful mockery. Karen's expression cracked just a smidge, her lips twitching as the corners threatened to smile. "Yes, well," she began, her voice brandishing a hint of her original decorum, "there's a fine line between art and chaos." I leaned in, widening my eyes as if clinging to a delicious secret. "But Karen, what if chaos is actually the art?" The bubbling laughter of our community rippled back into existence, joining forces to reduce the wall that had long separated Karen from us mere mortals, or just us ordinary residents with an aversion to her iron grip. Okay, but what do you think I should do?" she finally addressed me, visibly torn yet curiously intrigued, clutching the cold plastic cup harder as if she could contain the madness that threatened to erupt. "There may not be an HOA rule for ice cream parties, but this is highly unconventional." Greg chimed in with a dramatic flair, feigning a deep voice. "Your Excellency, perhaps this is the first step into an era of liberation from mundane oppression." Karen regarded him with narrowed eyes. "I should have known better," she retorted, but even the frosty air could taste the cloaked sincerity behind her words. As we devoured our scoops with fervent glee, my bewitching gaze returned to the dark, storm-ridden night outside. "You know, Karen," I teased, licking the remnants of chocolate fudge from my spoon, "you have brought this upon yourself. Maybe your no-generators edict needs a bit of, shall we say, revisiting?" The wind howled dramatically outside, almost in agreement. "After all," I continued, flamboyantly gesturing to the flickering lights around us, "you're currently a guest in a society powered by mavericks, are we not?" The neighborhood erupted in laughter, the defiance of our joyful chaos daring Karen to challenge her past validation. "Maybe I have made some questionable calls," she conceded reluctantly, her breathy giggle just about edging out a cackle. "But just because I've found myself unceremoniously plumb-trapped on the social merry-go-round doesn't mean I'm ready to install a disco ball in my living room, all right?" There was an undeniable shift in her tone. Beneath her carefully curated exterior lay an ember of curiosity that fanned to life. With every scoop delight, it felt as though Karen nudged her way toward a thrilling redo, as if dazzling glitter had begun to pour over her monochromatic life. Fueled by the playful culmination of my showdowns with the HOA, we powered through raucous tales of our neighborhood's quirks, who had the most eccentric garden gnomes, the wild bunnies that frequently staged coups on lawns, and the time we almost turned a yard into a community lizard sanctuary. Little by little, Karen leaned in closer, savoring the absurdity of our something profound sparked between the structure of her rules and the chaos of our freedom. Armed with unyielding energy from the generator, the power was no longer just mine. It was our collective mantra. It felt triumphant to imagine a community woven together beyond rigid red tape and HOA decrees. Maybe, just maybe, we'd found a common ground amidst the ice cream trails and laughter, a bridge over which both Karen and I could cross into a glorious new chapter rid of rancor and rulings. I contemplated this beautiful absurdity as Karen kept nibbling on her mint chip, her once mighty defenses tumbling. Could this be the dawn of our renaissance? Distracted by my delightful musings, I suddenly found myself wondering what might happen next. Would Karen officially propose a community event complete with neon lights and silly games? Was it possible that someday the only HOA wars we would have would be conducted via gleeful water balloon fights? The tides felt as if they were turning, and I wasn't sure what surprises awaited us next. But for tonight at least, the universe had answered my reckless longings for a community united and with a special scoop of chaos on the side. As we savored the last unrealistically large scoop of ice cream, I witnessed a delightful transformation unfolding before me. Karen Melrose, the unyielding queen of the HOA, with her meticulously styled bob and ironclad attitude, was chuckling. Yes, chuckling. It wasn't the high-pitched caw of contempt I was used to either. This was the unmistakable sound of a woman beginning to loosen up, the kind of laughter that hinted at her once impenetrable armor cracking piece by piece. I had to suppress a loud gasp of disbelief. After all, who would have thought that the key to her heart involved ice cream and a blackout? Surely, I could market this magic in a self-help book. How to Win an HOA Over with Fudge Ripple Delight. Greg, with a twinkle in his eye and the audacity of a man ready to test the limits of chaos, leaned closer to Karen. So, Karen, when's your first ice cream party? Or should we dub it Melted Popcorn Gone Wild? I bet you could get some killer flavors on the official HOA agenda. The way he delivered that put the whole neighborhood in stitches. I snickered at the thought. Could you imagine Karen standing at the front of a neighborhood potluck, decorum still in begrudging tow, showcasing her poise while shoveling strawberry cheesecake into a melting waffle cone with a hesitant grin plastered across her face? Ha! That was a sight I'd gladly pay to see. Just then, the sky rumbled, and the winds howled more dramatically than any soap opera character's despair. Now, I'll admit, I said, waggling my spoon like a magic wand, the universe might just be conspiring against you. A sudden ice cream party amid a blackout? That's some high drama, folks. It's practically Shakespearean. Karen, you might as well embrace your role as the heroine of this tragic comedy. The neighbors got riled up again, joy bubbling forth like the fizz and soda left too long on the counter. I was thoroughly reveling in the absurdity of it all. And who could resist that exhilarating mix of fun and indignation? Why must you always cloak this neighborhood in chaos? She finally retorted, a feigned sternness distorting her expression. But I caught a glimpse of genuine amusement breaking through. I need to uphold some order, for heaven's sake. I swiped at my phone, ready to unveil my favorite activist meme featuring cats denouncing societal structures. Who needs order when you have the whimsical adventures of ice cream? Besides, Karen, we're building a new community narrative, I echoed, heart racing with determination. This is about breaking free from the suffocating chains of HOA mandates, one scoop at a time. Just think of how many of your neighbors we could rally into this ridiculous flavor revolution. Much to my delight, Karen raised an eyebrow, considering her thoughts. While the laughter around us began to transform into a communal buzz, she may have prided herself on rigid structure, but to witness her wavering was a historic moment. I smugly pranced a few steps back, as though I could barely contain the joy radiating from our newfound solidarity. Let's be honest, Karen. Wouldn't you rather face the chaos of ice cream than the chaos of furious neighbors plotting revenge? Just picture it. Wild flavors, spontaneous ice cream eating races, and an orb of energetic chaos that even the HOA wouldn't dare squish. Before I knew it, the dark clouds outside made way for a glowing crescent moon, illuminating the bickering laughter turned camaraderie forming on our driveway. All right, I concede, Karen said, her lips curling into a fully fledged grin. Maybe a little chaos is overdue. My heart did a joyful somersault. Could it be? Was she opening up? Just don't expect me to wear straw hats and start a farm stand during this ridiculous flavor revolution. I nearly burst at her sarcasm. This was finally that moment where the formidable queen of order was born anew, as our neighborhood blossomed into this wild gathering, with chaos reigning supreme. As the night spilled onwards, there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The air shimmered with excitement, warmth, and inspiration, radiating through our tight-knit fabric of community. The curtains of decorum that had long cloaked our social interactions began to part, revealing something far more vibrant and refreshing. Ice cream had forged a bond stronger than all our history together, as titans of trivial complaints. And as every neighbor shared a story filled with laughter and liberties reclaimed, I could sense that we were building a bridge towards something magnificent. Could Karen and I actually collaborate on a street summer festival? Perhaps someday I would earn her reluctant approval for her own sparkling ice cream booth filled with her notoriously conservative flavor choices. With every mischievous thought bouncing off the walls of our garage, I couldn't help but smile at our triumphant defiance against mundane rules. The night not only marked a celebration of chaotic ice cream, but a hopeful turning point for our neighborhood's spirit. As the moonlight shimmered down on our gathering, a surge of possibility echoed forth. Who knew where this absurd adventure would lead us next? It felt like the dawn of something wildly creative and wildly unexpected, and I was ready to welcome whatever delicious chaos awaited us. As the community gathered in the glow of our renewed spirits, I caught a glimpse of Karen, riding the tide of transformation, her stern visage morphing into something resembling warmth. Who knew ice cream could fracture the iron walls of HOA tyranny? I whispered to Greg, who burst into laughter with that effortless, scruffy charm of his. I mean, if popsicles could solve world peace, we might as well toss our decibel restrictions out with the melted pistachio. The shout of enthusiastic approval from Miss Henderson, 3 houses down, echoed the sentiment loud and proud. Our collective defiance hummed in the air, electric with possibility. In the midst of this delightful chaos, the thought struck me. What if we challenged the HOA's rules not just through audible laughter and sugary concoctions, but through actual events? I leaned in conspiratorially. Greg, picture it. A neighborhood festival, complete with ice cream booths, joyful chaos everywhere, and, dare I say it, live music. We'd blast all the fun through Karen's meticulously observed quiet hours. I can see the look on her face as she puts on headphones to drown out the nutty, over-caffeinated revelry we'd unleash. Greg chuckled maniacally, nodding fervently, his untamed hair swaying like a glorious banner in the wind. As we frolicked in our merry conspiracy, Karen, proving that she hadn't completely succumbed to our ice cream charms, coughed abruptly to reclaim her authority. Now. We need to be responsible, folks. We can't have chaos descending upon our community like some wild frat party, she said with a mock seriousness that had the neighbors giggling uncontrollably. I couldn't resist throwing my head back in laughter. It was ironic now. The very chaos she had tried to regulate was filling the air with some much-needed lightness. Try as she might to wrestle back control, it was evident that a new chapter was being written. A melange of humor, mischief, and peaceful rebellion against the tyranny of entitlement. Fueled with inspiration and a healthy dose of audacity, I cleared my throat and addressed the crowd. So, my compatriots in sweet defiance, imagine a day where we celebrate the flavors of our community without fear of repercussions. An HOA-approved ice cream and outdoor shenanigans festival. The cheer that erupted felt like a tornado of enthusiasm overtaking my living room. I scanned the crowd, receiving enthusiastic nods from every corner, Karen included, who was now leaning closer, her eyes glinting with an odd mixture of amusement and intrigue. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to see the value in rebellion, in the beauty of community expression over regulation. But just when I thought we were teetering on a precipice of an extraordinary plan, fate decided to throw in a twist more delightful than all the sherbet splashes combined. Just as I was about to unveil these experimental flavors I'd been hatching in delight, think homeowner's grievance grape and Karen's conflict cookies, the sky erupted into a symphony of thunder. What is it with our neighborhood and theatrics? Greg teased, pointing at the swirling clouds growing darker by the minute. I chuckled. The whole situation was so absurdly perfect. Just when it seemed like we'd conquered the HOA, the heavens conspired for one more round of chaos. A blackout, of course. Of course, the lights did flicker back on seconds later, revealing our smiling, muddied faces in a dazzling glow of triumph. But the mere thought of what could have happened had an intoxicating freedom echoing in the air. Ladies and gentlemen, my heart doesn't just race for ice cream. Let it be known, I propose an emergency community meeting, I declared, half joking but full of zeal. Eyes twinkled, fueled by the refreshingly surreal blend of bold ideas surfacing within our usually stifled neighborhood. Who was I kidding? We were embarking on a resale journey of defiance. And Karen, oh dear Karen, was caught up in the delightful torrent along with the rest of us. Finally, amid the wave of excitement, she turned to me, the tension fading from her posture as she awkwardly suggested, "Fine, let's have this festival, just as long as we keep the decibel levels reasonable. Okay?" The collective gasp from the neighbors followed, quickly succumbing to eruptive laughter, the sound ricocheting through our little block like confetti. The absurdity of the situation was monumental, a neighborhood warrior rising from the ice cream-imbued ashes of entitlement. The very idea that her rules could be bent or broken as long as there was a scoop or two of frosty rebellion waiting to be tasted. And at that moment, I realized something profound. We were more than just residents twirling around an HOA's red tape. We were a community, a weird, loud, deliciously chaotic community. With ice cream as our battle cry and lovable chaos as our secret weapon, Anything felt possible. Onward we marched, wielding cones like trophies, armed with laughter and a vision. We wouldn't merely endure Karen's curbs any longer. We would build something sweet and deliciously ungovernable right here on our streets. In a world cluttered with battles against entitlement, ice cream had triumphed, serving as our slippery harbinger of change.